Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Futurum Tech Webcast. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, and I'm joined today as part of our interview series by Gunter Appel, the Senior Account Manager at aconso, and his colleague, Jan Klockgeter, Team Leader of Consulting at aconso. And we're going to talk about something that I'm fascinated by, which is all things HR and HR tech. And our conversation today is going to be about digitizing HR documents, ranging from recruitment files to personnel files, and what a difference that could make for personnel departments and for their organizations as a whole. If you're interested in that, this is where you want to be in the conversation that you want to be a part of. So, gentlemen, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. So, Gunter, tell
Yep.
me a little bit, if you would, about your background, your career path, how you ended up where you are today at aconso.
Okay. Yes, my role as a senior account executive at aconso, I'm managing the large and enterprise customers, and
Mhm.
I'm responsible for the international business segment here out of Germany. So I've been with aconso for almost 4 years and provide many years of experience in the field of management consulting, IT consulting, especially in the HR and the HR IT area. So I'm supporting and advising my clients on the digitizing of document management, usually as a part of an HR transformation engagement, which is already running at our customers.
That's awesome. HR transformation,
Yep,
that's a big space and there's a lot
absolutely.
going
Yes.
on there. And you know what? I've been involved in HR transformation
Yeah.
for a decade or more actually. And it's just, the speed at which change happens has been going more rapidly and more rapidly, and that is not going to slow down anytime soon. And that's exciting. So, Jan, let's hear a little bit about you and your background.
Yes, my name is Jan, and I finished my studies 8 years ago. I studied business administration in Germany and in Oklahoma, USA. My focus was human resources, and then I got my first job at an IT consultant company. Well, I missed the focus of HR consultancy at this point, and therefore found with aconso a great employer that allows me to combine my focus for the human resource processes with my interest in the IT part. And therefore, I think I found the ideal combination of both interests here at aconso. Currently, I'm working as a team lead for our consulting department in Switzerland.
That's awesome. Oklahoma.
Yes.
I heard that. Uh, I happen to be based in Kansas City, Missouri, which
Oh,
is not terribly far from
yeah.
Oklahoma, both states squarely in what we like to call the flyover country here in the United States. But that's a really great. Someday we'll have to talk offline about your journey from Germany to Oklahoma, because that really is kind of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
very interesting, very interesting. See why I love to do these conversations. I love to include background in these conversations because I think we just learn such interesting tidbits about one another.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk now about HR document management and what fully automated processes mean for HR pros. And by that, I mean, think about things like so many things, but just for starters, document creation, document management, internal communications, all of the pieces that comprise HR and HR operations, that really touch employees both in the recruitment process, the onboarding process, and then the process as they continue their employment with the organization. There's just so many tiny little pieces and so many documents, in an old school fashion, that we kind of have to chase around. So I'm really fascinated by what aconso is doing and the role that a digital personnel file can play. Even better, I know that aconso is not new to this space. I mean, this is not just a tech startup that just launched in the last few years. This is a company that's really been around for a significant period of time. So, Gunter, talk with us a little bit, if you would, about aconso and how the digital personnel file came to be.
Yes, of course. Yeah, aconso is the inventor of the digital personal file. and a market innovation leader for HR document management. And aconso solution has been deeply integrated into SuccessFactors, the SAP solution in HR out of the cloud. So since 2001, sorry, the aconso group has been setting new standards for the digital HR department with its vision of fully automatic HR processes. So we enable HR to focus more on the company's most important asset, and I think these are the employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are also enabling efficient collaboration between HR staff, employees, and managers. And so far reducing the administrative burden on the HR department. Therefore, we help customize this digitized document management regarding document archiving, document creation, and also what you mentioned before, internal communication, including end-to-end scanning services of already existing or still existing paper.
You know, I'm a big believer in the importance of culture, and happy employees are happy to get up in the morning and come to work and do their jobs. And it's a
Yeah.
little bit about like Jan talking about how he had one job but he missed another. He missed doing something else, and so work is a reality for most of us. But being able to do something that you love with company that you love and people you love, and being able to focus on the work that you enjoy and that fulfills you, and taking care of customers or whatever your role is within an organization. I think that that's a culture is a really big thing, and sometimes we get so immersed in things that we don't step back and realize the role that something like the administrative tasks that are a part of HR operations that play a big role in how happy employees are. I mean, things shouldn't be difficult, whether it's, again, part of the recruitment process or onboarding or any kind of holiday requests or finding out information about insurance benefits or whatever. So there is just so much at play in HR as a whole. It's really, I think, important, and I think it's not difficult to see the connection between automation and digitization and efficiencies of processes make a huge difference on everybody, not just on the HR team as a whole.
Absolutely
Okay.
correct. Yep.
We
So
are in agreement there, aren't we?
yeah.
so so one thing I'd like to talk about, as we are all aware, over the course of the last 18 months, the business world has shifted significantly as we've dealt globally with a pandemic. And, in some instances, I would imagine this necessitated a very quick pivot on the part of some HR teams to completely digital operations. And what I'm interested in is, the impact of navigating a pandemic on HR processes. And I'm also interested, so what I'm looking for is, share with us what your customers have experienced during this process. But what I'm also interested in is, we saw many other organizations have to make who were perhaps making plans to embrace some facet or another of digital transformation and budgeting to do that, but doing things with a mindset of like, that's kind of nice to have, but we're not quite ready to do that. And then what we saw when a pandemic happened that nobody expected was, holy moly, that's a technical term. We've got to shift immediately. So I'm interested in, how the events of the last year and a half impacted your customers. And then I'm also interested in, did you see any kind of quick shifts that maybe customers weren't expecting to take that did take? I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about that.
Mhm. Yes. So far, yeah.
Gunter, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to reply to that?
No, I think it's your part.
Jan, don't be
Thank you.
shy. Jump in
Okay.
there.
Yes. You're welcome. No, I think that's really an interesting topic, and I quickly want to refer to the cultural aspect that you mentioned, because
Yeah.
the work culture is constantly changing, and the pandemic accelerated this change even more. So nowadays, where people are working in home office situation, several hundred or thousand miles apart from each other, it is more and more important that papers and processes are accessible from all over the world. Okay, it's no longer possible that all employees come together at a certain spot and access documents or data only at this spot. So this facilitates the whole movement towards cloud solutions on the one hand. And this is just one aspect that was accelerated due to the pandemic situation. Another aspect is, for example, legal requirements that are also constantly basically some people say that they cause over administrative work, but at least they cause certain requirements that have to be met in the personal administration of a company. So for example, today we have to comply with data retention management, we have to comply with ISO norms, information and security governance, and so on and so forth. So, and these requirements can only be met by digitized systems, because no one will be able to to destroy papers or data after individual retention times. No one ever does that. Okay, so therefore it's important that you have an automatic retention management established with a digital software solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what did you see? Did you have any, and by the way, this is, a little, I think a question that I'm just lobbing to you. So you can lob it back to me if you want, but did you have instances over the course of the last year and a half where you saw customers who maybe weren't quite yet ready, thinking they were quite yet ready to embrace this digitization process, who had to kind of make a quick shift and realize, oh my gosh, we absolutely have to do this? And, did you experience any of that?
Yes, definitely, especially in the public sector. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would say that the private sector was prepared for this situation, because the shift towards cloud software
Right.
is an ongoing process for quite some years now. But in the public sector, for example, public transport, there we had some of our customers who were not prepared. Okay, so and
Hmm.
they really had an issue. They were documentation was not available for employees. They did not know how to contact the HR department, for example. So we really had some issues there, yes.
And you were able to map out a plan.
Yeah, definitely. As Günther already mentioned, we also offer scanning solutions. Okay, so we were able to digitize documents and data for these customers. It was tricky for us because there were several customers at the same time, but in the end, it was a year with a lot of work for us, but it was also a very successful and interesting year. Yeah.
So, one of the things that I'd really like to talk about a little bit more is that, one of the realities for all of us is that we shifted to working from home and we became increasingly reliant on our mobile devices and being able to use our mobile devices to actually get things done. So talk with us a little bit, Gunter, about that and what you've seen as it relates to sort of that, mobile work from home focus.
Yes, thank you. I think it's really important topic we recognized the last 2 years also regarding the pandemic here globally, and the mobile work from home came into absolutely primary focus. And the challenges we have to manage on a paper-based processes on an organization uh, are divided in some, I think, important criteria. The first criteria is really to enable flexible insight into individual personal files for employees and management. Also, because they are not able to go to the office, they need to go in the home office, and this is one of the biggest, one of the big topic to be flexible inside and just getting insight on a personal file. The next step is also important: archiving of documents provided by the employee lifecycle. As you mentioned before, that documents are really coming from the different area, from the different stages like recruiting, onboarding, and recruiting documents like contract CVs or onboarding documents for providing IT environment or just fulfilling compliance documents for the new employee. Also learning certification, any more, or any this kind of documents, there needs to be really archived in a kind of really centralized manner, and this is important having this in place. And I think, yeah, addition to these just archiving topics, the kind of also automatically creation and validation of documents by a dedicated team comes in more and more in focus, because this is really absolutely not a TCO, total cost of ownership, is also a return of investment topic in our organizations. Just really to automatically generating contracts, maternity letter,
Right.
departments movement confirmations, all these things. What really causes a lot of manual work at the teams, it can be really improved a lot of on this kind of business administration topics. Yeah.
And really just making it easier for everybody. I know that when it comes to, we've all sort of experienced slogging through a process or a document creation or whatever, but but we've also experienced when you're doing something on this computer that you hold in your hands, and it's amazingly easy and efficient, and it does exactly what you want to do. I mean, it just is a game changer. So it's really great. I think that again, there are many silver linings to what we've been dealing through. There are many negative things, but I try to look for the silver linings that a pandemic has taught us. And I think that a shift to mobile and the really primary role that mobile devices play in all of our lives, and how we can empower them within an organization. I think that is a really important thing.
Absolutely correct. And what you mentioned before, also just looking at the kind of cultural aspect, is more and more important having a kind of service-oriented and collaborative working environment in this kind of heterogeneous environment. You know what I mean? That people are really able to work just in the home office, but
Yeah.
they have the feeling really are still together and have the kind of ability to see each other like we, and really to communicate between and have a kind of collaboration opportunities. I think it's really important, also from at the solution side, having this kind of things in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Work,
yeah, yeah,
humans, I think
yeah,
there's been a lot of research on that, especially over the last year and a half, but that human connection that we used to get and didn't took for granted when we all went to an office every day, and the human connection and the collaboration and the ease of that. I think, and again, we talked on this earlier, and Jan talked about this a little bit. It's just culture is just a primary building block of any organization, and creating helping to create processes and using technology in ways that streamline the onerous tasks. I think it's all about what makes a place a great place to work, and
yeah.
I think that's what people are looking for, right?
I agree. Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about, customers and some of the roadblocks that you've seen customers experience over the last, in general, and maybe specifically over the course of the last 18 months or so, with HR document processing and storage. John, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, so this is really an important topic, and the roadblocks really were lying in the digital transition as such. So the goal has to be to make a fully digitized process. Okay, we
Right.
call that 100% digitized process, seamless flows without paper.
Hmm.
And to reach that, that's sometimes difficult, and there are different roadblocks that yeah, be from obstacles for this digital transformation. For example, there's legislation in some countries around the world that's not allowed to use digital signatures for certain kind of documents.
Right.
Then you have to print out documents, and you do not have 100% digital workflow anymore. Of course, that's a problem. Yeah, we can consult our customers regarding the legislation in different countries, and we always try to find a way to implement 100% digital processes. Furthermore, of course, we have an own development department and we adapt to legislation changes. So, for example, if when in Europe it was introduced that the data retention management is mandatory by law, we equipped our software solutions with retention management processes. So our customers can define for each document type when it should be deleted, and then the software does the job automatically.
I think that's a huge thing, and essentially, I don't have to stay on top of the regulations and the, changing rules and that sort of thing. I can rely on a software solution that does that for me.
Yes, absolutely correct.
I
Yes,
think
and therefore this is basically then another benefit of
right.
digitization. So not only is the process way quicker than it was before, but you do not have to check the legislation
Right.
and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really important part of this value proposition. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of future proofing. I think again another silver lining that has come out of a pandemic is that organizations have realized the importance of business continuity, business resilience, and thinking ahead and thinking about future proofing their organizations. I'd love to talk a little bit about you know the, future proofing a digitization roadmap. That spans the entire HR system landscape. One of you want to tackle that one for me?
And Günther, do you want?
Yeah, at the one hand, it's my part. So from one hand, I think important. I think one important thing is HR departments, enterprise organizations usually have hundreds of documents per employee and files, which
Right,
has been accumulated over the years. And storing paper files in file cabinet won't cut in today's digital world. I think this
right.
is one of the most important thing, bringing really all the things in the digital world. So digitizing everything by aconso and making it accessible through success factors improves management, collaboration, and also transparency in and for HR to maintain and trustworthy to creating decision making processes is important.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
perfect
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. End-to-end digital processes account for tremendous time savings for our customers. So
Mhm.
what you mentioned before, and what also just Jan mentioned before is following global sustainable archiving standards and compliant rules comes more and more in focus, like GDPR, what mentioned before, ISO 27001. Also, having a look on the global market, SOC 1 and SOC 2 are important criteria which the organization needs to have in mind. Though aconso digital personal file integration enhanced the solution by enabling enterprise organization to manage all data, HR documents, and this with a single tool, and this from, I think, from a trusted advisor. And with the use of the aconso solution, the aconso enjoys seamless end user experience was also important, also from the end user perspective, integrated success factor, reducing the amount of time to take to retrieve, retreat, and process the documents. I think it's very important this to underline this.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree as well. So I'd love to know, is there a category of companies that can benefit the most from using a solution like the Aconso solution? Or is it just
Um,
across the board suitable for anyone?
Well, basically, we say our software is suitable for anyone, but
Mm.
referring to your question, I think the larger an enterprise is, the more it can profit, okay?
Right.
Because the administrative cost-saving potential that this software is enabling, that is, of course, bigger with large enterprises. So
Mhm.
we really focus on the market with 10,000 employees and above.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. I would love for one of my favorite parts of any of these interview series conversations is when I can convince you to share with me some customer use cases, some success stories, some examples of real world, this technology in the wild and how it's working for customers. Do you have a story or two that you might be willing to share with us?
Yes, I think I can share two stories with you. The first, I think, is a company that everybody knows. That's McDonald's. And we had a great implementation project in Germany several years ago. I was the project manager there, so that's why I remember quite clearly about the details. It was 60,000 employees just in Germany.
Right.
And we had special challenges there because McDonald's has a special setup. We got three organizational dimensions. There was the headquarter organization with all the management and administrative staff.
Right.
Then there were McDonald's owned restaurants, and there are, of course, franchise stores.
Right.
So these three dimensions were not easy to combine because each had their own requirements, and each had their own wishes and expectations regarding digital software administration. And this was really not easy. But in the end, we managed. So we set a standard where possible. And at certain points where it was not possible to come up with a standardized solution, we allowed local or franchise individual customization. So, for example, of course, we implemented different working contracts for different stores. Okay, so it was not the way that McDonald's had one contract template and everybody has to use it. So, but each franchise restaurant could decide which template it wants to use.
Oh, well, that's
So
nice. Yeah.
yeah, and it really facilitated the acceptance of the software and our tools.
Right.
And all in all, we really achieved a great cost saving potential there for McDonald's.
Oh, that's
I
great.
quickly want to outline another story
Mhm.
from the pharmaceutical industry. I think I'm not allowed to mention the name here, but nevertheless, I want to give a short overview of this case. It's a company with more than 100,000 employees located in Switzerland. And there the challenge was that the software was introduced on a global scale directly with the implementation of the software. So we had a global project scope. Okay, and we really had to combine the requirements of almost all countries of the world. And we managed that by establishing individual training concepts for different regions of the world and really integrating our software into SAP standard software so that the customer had the look and feel of one software solution. This is a very important aspect from our experiences that we made in the past. It's really important that the customer has one look and feel and
Yeah.
not to learn different usability, different usage workflows with different software tools.
Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
that
No.
only leads to frustration in the end.
It does, and frustration leads to a lack of adoption and, all kinds of other challenges. So I very much see the importance there. Gunter, do you have anything to add on this front?
No, I think it's
You
was
think
yeah, it's fine.
you think Jan got it?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
like
you
it.
got it. Yes, yeah.
So let's talk about what's ahead. Are there any new features, any new developments that you're excited about that you'd like to share here?
Yeah, I think we can just add to the last example that I gave because, as I said, the seamless integration is really important, and we see a more and more standardized approach. We see that the pressure on digitization is growing, also due to the pandemic situation. there was a huge pressure on organizations, so the project timelines they get shorter and shorter. Okay,
They do.
yeah, definitely, and we try to meet this requirement by developing standardized software, so really easy to implement software. In just a few days, the customer can access the software and start using it. And then later on, we try to customize and individualize the software according to the needs and requirements of our customers. And this was different in the past, because in the past we really established a project timeline with a project
Right.
scope, and then we started developing and customizing the software, and then several months later we implemented the software.
Right.
But today, no one wants to wait several months
Yeah.
until the purchased software can be used. Yeah.
No, I think actually that's a great example of innovation. And the other thing that, in my experience, a lot of times, um, when you can dive right in and start using a solution, that also leads you from a user experience standpoint to realize, I'd like it if this worked differently, or I think we really need this. And it helps you, sometimes having conversations about what you want a solution to look like or do or behave in a certain way. They're sort of esoteric when you're just sort of mapping it out on paper. But when you're really able to use the solution and use it quickly and really see it in action, I think that helps from an overall customization standpoint down the road.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And we also see that the customers' feedback that we're receiving is way, way better than before. And
Yeah,
we save a lot of time for documentation
yeah,
and things like that, which basically never led to a point where a customer really had an understanding of how the software looks like.
right,
Okay, so
right.
therefore this direct starting approach is way more practical and yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that really makes a lot of sense. And again, we found ourselves in a situation where people didn't have the luxury of waiting months for a project to roll out. We had to put these solutions in place right away, and we're seeing a big benefit from it. So I think that's, yet another pandemic-driven silver lining, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the other part of this too, beyond a global pandemic, one of the things that I try to tell people all the time is that, the pace of innovation and technology advancements and all of those things have sped up so much over the course of just the last, 5 years, the last 2 years. And there in no way is that going to slow down. So I think that understanding that is a given, and understanding that this rapid pace that we're all moving at is our norm. And understanding, being agile, and like, creating a situation where you can use a solution and then figure out some more customization options or things like that. I think that's really becoming a norm rather than an aberration. And I think that understanding that from a business leadership standpoint, and from an IT leadership standpoint, and from an HR leadership standpoint is really important, because that's all part of the digital transformation process.
And also from the investment saving standpoint, absolutely
Abs-
important. This is
Absolutely.
from the investment, save the investment, lower the risk, and be
Yeah.
more effective. Also, on the engagement side is important. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you two have been a wealth of information, and I so appreciate your time today. I'd love to leave this conversation with some advice from you two for anybody watching, participating in this show as we stream it to LinkedIn, or watching it or listening into it later. What advice do you have for HR pros, and tech leaders, any person involved in this decision, for integrating technology solutions into HR operations? What's your advice?
Yeah. So probably I go first in this for this answer. So I think the first and the most important topic is also based on the culture. involve your employees in a digitizing plan as an early stage. I think that's very
Yeah,
important. Bring your employees on board, bring your stakeholder on board, and really also the kind of change shifting, having this kind of in mind. In Germany, we have workers' council in place. They are the advocate for the employees. They also need to be involved in the early stage, and probably they should participate in the role, so they will be more engaged in that. And that is important, having this kind of things in mind. Really, the cultural aspect is, I think, the one first important thing.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, yeah,
Our research on digital transformation has
yeah.
shown, we published some research in the last year, and one of the things that we did in a particular research study was instead of only surveying senior and mid-level executives, we spoke with, more frontline workers, and what they told us is that they understood that the company was going through processes of digital transformation, and they wanted to be involved in the processes. They didn't feel like they were involved in the processes, and they didn't exactly know how they could get involved, but they were very much there raising their hands saying, please involve us in the processes. We think we can contribute. And so your advice there is spot on, because it's such an important part of, culture and adoption and success of these initiatives. So that's really awesome. Um, Another piece of advice I
So
think you
far, I
might have.
think, so just to summarize this, also don't underestimate the change management process. I think this is really goes along with the kind of digitizing plans, which means really change, having a change management, just engagement or working packages in place,
Right.
because any HR processes which are digitized could impact the daily work of the employees dramatically. So, because the most important asset are the employees, I think change management would be the second advice aligned to what I might mention before,
Yeah.
involved employees.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
The-
Jan, do you have any words of wisdom?
Well, yes, I would like to add that you should not only involve your internal stakeholders, but also the externals. And if
yeah.
you think your organization is not ready for the digital transformation process, then do not hesitate to contact external experts. Okay, because they really can help. They have experience throughout different businesses, and they really can help you with the advice how to start with digitization.
And I think that's a really important point that you make. One of the things, great relationships with trusted vendor partners is really the key to success, no matter what initiative it is you're trying to take on. And one of the things that we talk with clients about is that, for instance, if I'm considering doing this and I have a conversation with you and the team at aconso, what you bring to my organization is all of the work that you've done over the course of the last couple of decades and all of the problems that you've solved for other clients. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm learning from, and I have the benefit of working with somebody who, really has probably navigated some incredibly difficult challenges on the part of, and nuanced challenges with customers in highly regulated spaces or things like that. So it really is, I think that's sage advice, is don't underestimate the importance of reaching out to, talking with, working with, a trusted vendor partner.
And I think this is also one additional point which fits to this what you mentioned now is regarding the HR transformation engagements. Have a look on the architecture and the interfaces and on the system. Having really a kind of big picture regarding the differentiation between processes, data, and or documents. So this will ensure to prevent overlaps and gaining a seamless end-to-end harmonization. So
Yeah,
this also could support an external stakeholder on that, because the experience could be really on the market and not in the organization itself.
right.
So,
That makes perfect sense. Jan, is there any other advice that we have, or have we covered it all?
Well, I think you also have to prioritize when you start with the digitization, okay? Because there are so many processes and so many documents going around in an enterprise, and therefore you really have to prioritize which processes cost the most effort or which are most relevant for the employees. Could also be
Right.
the case, would be a different approach, yeah. But prioritization is really key to success.
Right, and having a strategy and a roadmap
Yeah.
in place. Yeah, that
And in
makes
the early stage, I can really underline what Jan mentioned. So in the early stage, just establish a roadmap, yeah, and earn the
yeah,
low-hanging fruits for every roadblock. This currently combined with our engagement model, which we have approved. What Jan mentioned before, I think it's really a kind of really effective approach to start or just manage an engagement. Yep. I can just
yeah,
underline this what Jan mentioned. Prioritization is really very important to be focused and to have a clear scoping on that.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
And my experience with that low hanging fruit has also been when you're introducing something new into the work environment, when you can start with that low hanging fruit and have some great results, it really impacts how people feel about the technology solution that you're introducing. And it makes, it creates excitement. It's like, oh my gosh, that was so awesome. I want to be a part of that. Let's get that going in my department. And so to me, that's really when the process is exciting, when because we know going in that this is going to work and this is going to be so awesome and it is going to be life changing for you and your team. um, and then when we have those low hanging fruit cases and we can just quickly implement those, it's really, I always find it so exciting just to see the light in people's eyes and the excitement about, I want to be a part of that. And I think that that's
yeah,
part of the path to
yeah.
success with this.
And and
Absolutely.
and making the customer successful, I think is important. Having
Yeah,
the internal stakeholder and the sponsorship, when they are successful, then I think we are successful. I think this is
absolutely.
having this kind of mind. So yeah,
Absolutely. Well, you couldn't have said it better. That's awesome. Well, Gunter and Jan from aconso, thank you so much for spending time with me today and for talking about your solution and just all that's going on in the HR technology space. It has been my pleasure, and I am sure we will meet again, gentlemen.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. It was a really interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That was great. Well, thanks, guys.